In this video, I'm going to tell you why your favorite NFL team's name is offensive. If you're easily triggered, you might want to X out of this video right now because some feelings are going to be hurt. Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals, huh? You know that the cardinal is a bird, and you know what birds do? Birds eat worms, and those worms have families. Did you even think about that? Every single day, while you're enjoying your life and you're messing around and you have no responsibilities, birds like cardinals are committing mass genocide against worms, and you have nothing to say about it. Well, I do. The name Cardinal is offensive to worms and their families and worm supporters. The Atlanta Falcons. The falcon is another bird, so you're probably saying, well, this is the same exact thing as the Cardinals. Well, you'd be wrong, pal. I'm going a different route. Did you know that the falcon is a nickname for a certain type of helicopter that's used in combat? It goes without saying that over the years, combat and war has taken countless lives. So the Atlanta Falcons name is subliminally promoting war and death, and I'm calling on them to change it immediately. Baltimore Ravens. You might have already known this, or you might not have, but the Baltimore Ravens are named after a poem called The Raven by Maryland native Edgar Allan Poe. What's the problem? Edgar Allan Poe married his 13-year-old cousin, and by naming themselves after a guy who was both a pedophile and incestuous, the Baltimore Ravens are promoting pedophilia and incest. Seriously though, naming your team after a guy who married a 13-year-old, you might as well call yourself the Baltimore Malones, am I right? Buffalo Bills. Bills. You know what bills are? Bills are something that you have to pay in order to live in a home. And there are a lot of people who are not rich enough or wealthy enough to pay their bills. So therefore, the Buffalo Bills team name is indirectly offensive to homeless people and poor people, and I will not stand for it. Carolina Panthers. Panthers are very beautiful and exotic animals, but they have a dark side to them, including attacking dogs and humans. There are many recorded cases of this, as you can see by my screenshots. I did extensive research on the internet, and by naming themselves the Panthers, Carolina is glorifying attacks on dogs, cats, even ponies aren't safe from the wrath of a panther, and yet the Carolina Panthers are glorifying this terrible, disgusting animal abuse with their team name. Honestly, I'm throwing up right now. Chicago Bears. You're probably expecting me to say that this is offensive to people who have suffered from bear attacks or known loved ones or lost loved ones from bear attacks, and while that is true, I'm going to go a different route. Chicago Bears are subliminally supporting cardiovascular and heart disease. Because you want to know what the mascot for Coca-Cola, one of the leading soft drinks in the world, is? Polar bears. Get it? They're trying to tell our children that drinking and consuming large amounts of sugar is okay. And guess what happens? Those children end up becoming obese and fat, and they die young from heart troubles and obesity. So shame on the Chicago Bears for promoting obesity. Cincinnati Bengals. Listen closely to this one. Bengals. Bengals. Ben space gals. Past tense. Gals. Gals, a nickname for girl. It's talking about people that have been girls, aka been women in the past. It's insulting and extremely offensive to transsexual men who used to be women. And it's just happening in plain sight right in their team name, and they tried to cover it up by putting a tiger as their logo. It might have fooled you, but it didn't fool me. And I don't want to brag, but I'm basically a hero for pointing this out. Cleveland Browns. This one's pretty self-explanatory. The name Browns is extremely offensive to people of brown skin color. There's no place for this in today's society. Racism is a disease. You should not judge somebody based on the color of their skin, but by their character. I really thought racism was going to end forever when the Redskins changed their name and when the Indians changed their name, but unfortunately, it's somehow still alive. The Browns need to change their name immediately. I'm going to write a very, very impassioned letter to Jimmy Haslam. Dallas Cowboys. The term cowboy is making light and making fun of closeted gay men as portrayed in the movie Brokeback Mountain with Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal back in 2005. Making fun of closeted gay people who happen to be cowboys is not funny. Denver Broncos. A bronco is a horse, and you know what horses are used for? They're used for human entertainment and horse racing, which is disgusting because according to PETA, which is a very reliable source, there are over 700 and 800 racehorses that are injured and die every single year. So shame on the Broncos for glorifying and promoting horses being killed. Animal abuse has gone unchecked for way too long. Fuck you, Michael Vick. Detroit Lions. Did you know that lions are a rapidly decreasing species and are considered vulnerable on the conservation status scale? By using the name lions, Detroit is making money off of the suffering of these innocent, adorable animals who would not hurt a fly. I mean, just look at the picture of those beautiful cats. They're running at you so fast to give you a giant hug with their huge paws. You have to be a real cold, heartless son of a bitch to try and make money off of their suffering. Green Bay Packers. The term pack is also slang for leaving, and there are plenty of people in the United States and around the world who have suffered from an absent parent, specifically an absent father who left them when they were young or before they were born. So the term Packer is honestly extremely offensive to people who grew up without a parent or parents in their lives. Houston Texans. This one's pretty easy. The name Texans is obviously a reference to the state of Texas, and Texas has voted Republican in I don't know how many consecutive presidential elections, and this is obviously extremely offensive to liberals and people who are not Republicans, and I really think that they should change the name and become less of a partisan political name, and they should really think about liberal people's feelings, because that's what's really important. Indianapolis Colts. This is a double whammy. The name Colt is used for both a gun, the Colt 45, which promotes gun violence, and also Colt 45, which is a beer, which promotes alcoholism, which has destroyed countless families in our history. So promoting both alcohol consumption and gun violence at the same time, Jim Irsay should be ashamed of himself, but honestly, I don't even think he knows where he is right now. So don't expect this very, very offensive name to be changed anytime soon. Jacksonville Jaguars. As you can tell, the Jaguars' conservation status, they are near threatened. Their population is decreasing. So the Jaguars organization is making money and fame off of the suffering of these beautiful, gorgeous animals. But it's not just that. As we all know, there is also a brand of cars named Jaguar, and these are gas cars. They use gas, which submits very, very toxic and harmful odors into the environment, destroys the ozone layer. So the Jacksonville Jaguars are promoting the suffering of animals, and they're also promoting pollution with their name. I'm literally shitting my pants right now in disgust. Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, just look at this motherfucker. Las Vegas Raiders. A lot of people might not even know what a raider is, so I did extensive research on the internet and found this definition. A raider is defined as a person who attacks an enemy in the enemy's territory. And you know what that perfectly describes? That's right, 9/11. So the term raiders is making fun of 9/11 and all the people who got hurt and died on 9/11. What happened to never forgetting? Seriously, 9/11 was very, very bad, and making fun of it is not cool at all. The Las Vegas Raiders should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. Los Angeles Chargers. Electricity is something that we both rely on and something that can kill us. And as you can see by this photograph, there is such a thing as people being killed from their electrical sockets exploding. Now, what do you put in an electrical socket, you might ask? Well, you put your phone charger or a charger of some sort into these sockets, and before you know it, boom, you get blown up and you die. There have been people who have lost loved ones from chargers like this, and Dean Spanos, the heartless bastard that he is making light of their injuries by naming his team the Chargers. It's really just, I can't even get into it. I have to move on because I'm getting too angry and upset about it because I'm a good person. Los Angeles Rams. We all know that a ram is an animal, but I'm going to go a different route here. Ramming is something that football players do on every single play, and this leads to concussions, and it also leads to severe brain damage and CTE. And you know who had CTE? That's right, Aaron Hernandez. Killed a couple people. Chandler Jones, as far as I know, he hasn't killed anybody yet, but he obviously has some severe psychological issues. And so the LA Rams are making fun of CTE and people with concussions. It's really just disgusting and extremely offensive. Miami Dolphins. I think it's funny that we as human beings, we view dolphins as these cute, cuddly, harmless, innocent creatures, and we view sharks as these big, bad meanies, these poopy heads who eat us and are dangerous. Well, guess what? In reality, did you know that sharks are scared shitless of dolphins, because dolphins will literally gang up on sharks and attack them? And that is why the Miami Dolphins name is extremely offensive to sharks. And you might say, who gives a shit? Well, I give a shit, because sharks have feelings too, okay? And if you're neglecting the feelings of a shark, then you're neglecting the feelings of an animal, and that makes you a bad person. Minnesota Vikings. Vikings were notoriously brutal groups of people, murder, rape, pillaging, you name it, and the Vikings in Minnesota and the organization, they promote this, they make money off of it. They're subliminally or indirectly supporting and condoning all these terrible actions that Vikings used to do in the old days, and I cannot stand it. And therefore, I am officially announcing that I am boycotting every Vikings game until they change their name to something less offensive, because I'm a hero. New England Patriots. I was going to say that this was offensive to people from England because the Patriots defeated the Redcoats Patriots in the Revolutionary War, but honestly, fuck the British. Nobody cares about their feelings. So I looked deeper and I found that this name is actually offensive to all of us Americans because the Patriot Act was a complete invasion on our privacy after 9/11. And if you supported the Patriot Act, that means that you support infringing on everybody's freedoms and privacy. And basically, you support sabotage. So the New England Patriots, their team name, endorses sabotage and the violation of privacy, which is ironic considering Robert Kraft's history. New Orleans Saints. I was going to originally take a religious angle on here, but as we all know, there's plenty of issues with religion already, and I don't want to get demonetized. So I'm going to go a different way. I'm going to talk about St. Bernards. While I obviously don't hate St. Bernards, I will point out that they produce massive dumps all over the place if you have a St. Bernard. And so it's really, this might be one of the least offensive names, but it still is somewhat offensive. It's offensive to our noses when we have to smell and inhale the stench of the giant shits and turds that St. Bernards pinch out on the lawn. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but it's just, these dogs, they just have no control over their bowels, and we cannot be glorifying that. I mean, just look at San Francisco. There's shit everywhere all over the streets. New York Giants. It's pretty obvious that the people who came up with the name Giants did not care about short people and their feelings. The name Giants is especially offensive to short people like Peter Dinklage, Gary Coleman, you name it. Just so many people who are unfairly discriminated against because of their lack of height, and the Giants do not do anything to help that. They need to change their name immediately. New York Jets. You're probably expecting a 9/11 reference here, but guess what? I would never ever do such a thing. Do not check my old videos, just trust me. I actually think that the name Jets is extremely offensive to everybody who lost a loved one on the Malaysian airplane that disappeared about 10 years ago. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 disappeared without a trace, and then there was another aircraft from that same airline about a month or so later that got blown up in the Ukraine. So basically the term Jets is making fun of airplanes that disappear and get blown up, which is just really insensitive. Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously I'm an Eagles fan, so I don't like to do this, and Eagles are admittedly badass, cool looking animals, but I must point out that it is extremely offensive to fish and other aquatic animals who are brutally murdered and ripped from their families and loved ones by eagles with their giant ass talons out of the water, as you can see in this non-Photoshop picture I have here. That fish had a family that cared about it, and now guess what? It's gone. That's what eagles do. They brutally take fish and other sea creatures away from their families and loved ones. It should never be accepted or promoted, but that's what the Eagles organization is doing. But in a way, I will say it's canceled out because the bald eagle is so fucking American that it almost cancels out the offensiveness. Almost. Pittsburgh Steelers. If you don't know by now, the name Steelers is a reference to the steel mills and the blue-collar workers in Pittsburgh, which is famous for its steel mills. But did you ever think about what happens to those steel workers inhaling all that dust and fumes and asbestos and all that shit? It leads to respiratory problems, asthma, bronchitis, other long-term issues, including the black lung, not to be racist. The Pittsburgh Steelers name, while on the surface seems like a tribute, it's actually offensive and making fun of all the blue-collar workers who suffer and die basically doing hard manual labor. If I was a resident of Pittsburgh, I would be very offended by this, and I would be demanding that the team change their name to something more classy, like the Pittsburgh Roethlisbergers, for example. San Francisco 49ers. 49ers are named after the gold rush that happened in the mid-1800s, specifically 1849, when people went out west to find gold. And on the surface, it may seem like a pretty smart and harmless name, but I'm here to tell you that it is very nefarious if you look past the surface. 1849, you know what was still legal in America in 1849? That's right, slavery. Abraham Lincoln still had not ended slavery. That would not happen for another 14 years, the Emancipation Proclamation. That's a little quick history lesson. God, I'm so fucking smart. Anyway, so the name 49ers is promoting an era where slavery was still legal, and I cannot sit idly by and watch this team continue to get promoted. It's disgusting. I don't know how many times I've said that in this video, but all these names are disgusting, and I'm extremely offended by it. And if you think slavery was good or cool, then hey, I guess you like the 49ers team name, but guess what? I don't, because I'm I'm a good person with morals. Seattle Seahawks. Seahawk, there is no such animal that's specifically called a Seahawk, but it's essentially a pigeon or a seagull. And you know what seagulls and pigeons are famous for? They are famous for shitting, literally, dropping bombs. They're famous for emptying their bowels all over people and their cars. And I can't even begin to guess how many car accidents and deaths there have been over the years because a pigeon or a seagull took a shit on somebody's car window or dashboard when they were driving, and it caused a crash and it caused people to die. It might seem like a harmless joke to you, but this shit literally is serious to me. So all the pigeons and seagulls that are planning on taking over the world, they're in favor of the Seahawks name because they're being promoted and glorified by it, but it's really just, it's not acceptable to me. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers are a type of pirate, and what were pirates? Pirates were very similar to raiders. They were thieves, they were rapists, they had sex slaves. It was just not good, and so by naming themselves the Buccaneers are promoting this type of thing. And I'm not saying this just because Tom Brady played for them for 3 years. I'm not saying that helped, but you know, it's just pirates did a lot of disgusting things back in the day, and we should not glorify that. I'm not blaming Tom Brady, but as an aside, I just want to point out that Tom Brady was born 13 days before Elvis died. I'm not saying that Tom Brady killed Elvis, but it cannot be ruled out entirely. Tennessee Titans. What a bunch of freaking perverts, am I right? They used to be the Houston Oilers, aka Oil Her, which is a very, very sexual sounding name, and so they changed it to the Tit-Ans. Literally, they have tit in their name. This sexualizes women and marginalizes women and reduces them to nothing but pieces of meat. I mean, what kind of sick bastard enjoys looking at tits? I mean, I would never, ever objectify a woman by looking at her breast. The thought of it, I'm such a class act and I'm such a good person, just the mere thought of that just disgusts me and offends me so greatly. Obviously, it did not offend people who run the Tennessee Titans because they promote it, but it's extremely offensive. And finally, the Washington Commanders. Very simple. This name promotes war and it glorifies war because guess what happens in war? You have commanders, and commanders are a part of the chain of command in the armed forces. And I'm so disappointed. I really thought that Dan Schneider, when he was still the owner before his tragic death last year, I think he died, whatever. Anyway, he might still be alive, who cares? But I really thought he was classier because as we all know, he really changed the name for no reason. Nobody ever had a problem with the previous name Redskins, but he decided to be cool and he tried to get cute with it, and it was the football team for a couple years and then the Commanders. So now they're promoting war. John McCain, George W. Bush, and all the war hawks, they might like that shit, but I don't because I don't like seeing innocent people die. So it's very offensive. They need to change their name again for the 4th time, I think, in 5 years, would it be? 5-6 years? I've lost track at this point, but they need to change it because it's offensive. I hope that you learned a lot from watching this video, but not only that, I hope that you became a better person and realized that you were naive and ignorant to a lot of other people's feelings by watching this video. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and continue to watch my other videos because I need the money very, very badly.